Let's move on to the big political story this side. Labour MPs are warning Sir Keir Starmer's leadership is faltering after a bruising week that saw Angela Rayner resign over a tax row and Lord Madison removed as ambassador to Washington.
And now the Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, has unveiled a new campaign group widely seen as laying the groundwork for a future leadership challenge.
So some Labour MPs are saying the clock is ticking for their leaders.
And others aren't holding back either. The Bassetlaw MP, Jo White, circulated a pamphlet celebrating Labour's U-turn on winter fuel and highlighting her own push to challenge the government.
So can Sir Keir reassert his grip, or is it time at the top already slipping away?
Well, joining us in studio, political editor of Times Radio, Anna Mikhailova. And it's lovely to see you.
Good morning.
In a new guise as well.
Indeed.
Congratulations.
But my goodness, what an interesting time for you to take this new role.
Indeed.
Actually, as political editor, because nearly anything's happened.
Well, my first day was day one of Keir Starmer's reset. So there you are. The last 2 weeks have been...
You haven't really left the office. I mean, this is an extraordinary time where almost anything is happening, and we see a leader, and for heaven's sake, he's leading our country. It seems to be chaotic.
Well, it is. I think it's... when we reflect on this, we have to just understand how extraordinary it is to have these sort of conversations happening, mostly in private still, but happening nonetheless, about how long could Keir Starmer last, within his own party. And there were disgruntled people who'd been saying it sooner, months ago. I even had my first ever conversation was about a year ago about how long can he last. But it is absolutely extraordinary that this is becoming more mainstream when he has frankly just got in with a huge majority and turned around his party's electoral prospects completely. So, and what happened this week, and these stories about Andy Burnham, there was already talk about Andy Burnham a week ago before everything with Peter Mandelson. So Andy Burnham went out on the Sunday shows last weekend and made this very extraordinary intervention about the upcoming deputy leadership contest, where he not only made a very clear... he backed Lucy Powell. He name-checked her before she had even run, which made clear to everyone that she would be someone he'd favour. They are both Manchester MPs. They are friends. And then he also criticised Keir Starmer's not just government, but actual management style of the party, because a lot of this goes to the heart of how unhappy MPs are with how number 10 and the Starmerites have been handling them from day one. So Andy Burnham actually said, how can we have a Labour Party that has kicked out people like Rachel Maskell? He actually name-checked an MP who was suspended over the welfare reform rebellion. And again, that's just such a shot, across to Keir Starmer.
So he's laying out his wares already, isn't he? And if he could get Lucy Powell in to be deputy, that would serve him very well if by some extraordinary means, and maybe you can think how he would actually position himself. He'd have to become an MP in order to run for the leadership.
Yeah, there are two things to point out. One, this isn't the Conservative Party, so within Labour it is very hard to get rid of a leader no matter how unhappy MPs are. There isn't really a simple mechanism. And then secondly, for Andy Burnham himself, he needs to be an MP. And the thing that, it is not universal that MPs all say Andy Burnham is the future. There are people who also don't think that would work. And one of the main things they point out, just in terms of the logistics, is to have a seat right now, they would need a by-election. And Labour this government does not want to have a by-election right now with the current state and with reform as high in the polls. And also, would Andy Burnham want to fight a by-election in that climate? Because he can't fight one and then lose it.
No.
So he'd have to make really sure it was a very safe seat. Lucy Powell, if she wins the deputy leadership, not only would it really send a signal to Starmer, because this is turning out into a proxy battle and a way for MPs to just give the government a kicking if nothing else, but also if she gets in, she has a seat as deputy leader on the NEC, on the National Executive Committee, which will help Andy Burnham have an ally and if needed, help with that route back into Parliament.
He's not the only one. I mean, it's always fascinating what's going on. This is the headline on the Daily Telegraph today. Burnham prepares challenge to Starmer. But it's always interesting to delve behind the headline and work out who got that story, who put it into the Telegraph, the wheels behind the wheels. Was this Andy Burnham, or is it someone else being more mischievous, trying to queer the pitch for Andy Burnham? I mean, maybe someone, but not saying he's done this, but someone like Wes Streeting who fancies the job.
Well, I think the dark arts of politics, you know well, are really something. And we've got this group, the Telegraph is writing these stories about called Mainstream. But, you know, a spokesman for the group didn't deny that it could become a leadership vessel for Andy Burnham to the Telegraph. But obviously that is, there are many ways you could read that. It could just be helpful for them to have it out there, but hands off, as we call it. It's fascinating.
It is, yes. They've got to be ready. I mean, and as you said, Andy Burnham isn't necessarily King of the North to some people. He really isn't. We're getting a lot of reaction from people who live locally and don't like him at all.
Well, exactly. The issue with this, Anna, briefly, is if the government, the ministers and the backbenchers put as much effort into running the country, we would be in the state we are, as they are in for this jostling for position and infighting. They're as bad as the Conservatives were before them.
Well, look, I think when I speak to Conservatives, former senior Conservatives, about all of this, because they are also extremely surprised about how quickly this seems to have unravelled. But the main point they make is they just say about Labour and about the people in Labour right now in government. They say, well, it wasn't as easy as it looked, was it? It was much easier criticising from the sidelines. Actually, government is extremely hard. And politics, in the modern age where people are much less loyal to parties, much more angry with politicians in general, it is a hard job.
It's a horrible job, actually, isn't it? I mean, no matter how upright you might think you are, you stand for political office, and it's not just the press, but the press are doing a big job of it at the moment. But it's everybody. You automatically make enemies, don't you? And people who will scratch away at your private life, at your finances and everything else until they find a weakness.
Well, and I think that's a really good point. And also, don't forget, the 2024 election had a record number of new MPs, and a lot of those MPs, particularly when they first got in, were actually really shocked at how much abuse they were getting, at how much anger there was just by virtue of being in government. I think they just assumed that there was so much goodwill towards Labour going into the election that it would continue. But actually, as soon as things like winter fuel happened, people really, really were angry and expressed it to them. And those MPs, some of them are very young and quite inexperienced and have been really shocked.
We'll talk more later. We've got lots of time to talk about so many more things.